Hello and welcome once again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we would like to hear from you. If you've got comments about the program, questions about the FAIRtax, you may direct them to the FAIRtax Guys. No dots, no dashes, no nothing, just all one word, the FAIRtax Guys at gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Name and town would be nice, but not totally necessary if you wish to remain anonymous. And if you'd like a audio recording of any of these FAIRtax Power Radio programs, you can send your request to the same address. This is program number 3. And again, the FAIRtax Guys at gmail.com. We are ready to hear from you. And Ron, we have spent the last couple of times together here talking about what's wrong with the way we're doing it now. What's wrong with the income tax? Plenty. Why should the IRS go away? You got to have a list this long. But now it's time to start talking about the solution rather than the problem. And there are going to be a lot of solutions put forth. And especially you have to remember, keep in mind that the politicians want us to have just what we've got now. They will make as few substantive changes as we, the electorate, will let them get away with. But we have got a really good thing here called the FAIRtax, and that's what we need.
That's right. And it's been around for a while. We need to lead our leaders to the FAIRtax. Now, a lot of you know what we're talking about. If you're not familiar with the FAIRtax, please go to fairtax.org and learn more about it, become a member. And we have talked, as Bob said, we have talked quite a bit about the problems with the current system. It's really outdated. It's cumbersome. It's confusing. It costs our economy and each one of our wallets dearly. All right, now we need to talk about the FAIRtax. A while back here in Florida, one of our FAIRtax leaders came up with an idea. He said, if you want to impress people about the FAIRtax, if you want to get the point across, don't bore them with the details. Sell the sizzle, not the steak. Well, that became a state initiative. In fact, we even started calling them, the director put out, send us your best short points about the FAIRtax. We started calling them sizzle points. And I realized some of the ones that came in, these lend themselves very nicely to a Jeff Foxworthy style of presentation.
That was a stroke of brilliance, Ron. I've got to hand it to you right there.
Well, yeah, the problem is that you may not have noticed, but I don't sound like Jeff Foxworthy. I admit it. I am a transplanted Yankee and very happy here in Florida. Bob, however, does sound pretty darn good like Jeff Foxworthy. So we took our 10 best, and we're going to use this vehicle to present the FAIRtax to you in this and subsequent programs.
Okay. And if you want to see the whole thing at one time, it's on YouTube, right?
Yep. There's a YouTube video. And it's called You Might Be a FAIRtax Fan.
And that is one of the things that as we walk around and go around to present the FAIRtax to people, one of the things that I just really enjoy seeing is that moment when the light bulb goes on.
Oh, yeah.
When somebody who doesn't know much about the FAIRtax suddenly realizes, hey, this is a good idea. I like it. And the idea is that people are FAIRtax fans and they don't know it. So we're just trying to turn the light bulb on in a lot of people's minds on this thing, and that's what we're going to do. And one of the things that does, again, matter where you are on the political spectrum, something everybody likes is more money.
No doubt about that.
So the first thing we do when we tell people about the FAIRtax is, here we go, Foxworthy here. If you'd like more money in your pocket by eliminating federal withholding and payroll taxes from your paycheck, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
Okay, now what do we mean by that? Well, the FAIRtax is a consumption tax. It is not an income tax. When the FAIRtax is passed, part of the bill says that the 16th Amendment must be repealed. Remember, that's that awful amendment that allowed Congress to tax our income, our productivity, our hard work. That goes away. The IRS goes away. So you're going to pay your taxes when you go to the store, buy things. But what does that mean about your paycheck? All right? That means no more withholding. No withholding. You'll have no federal deductions taken from your paycheck. No withholding. Now, if you live in a state like where I escaped from, where they still have an income tax, there will be state deductions. And if you're on an insurance plan, there'll be withdrawals for insurance. It doesn't affect that. But as far as federal taxes, none. All right.
And the federal tax withholding and the payroll taxes go away.
That's right. The FICA taxes. which I can't remember what the heck FICA stands for, but I can tell you what it is. Social Security is 6.2% of your income goes to Social Security, and Medicare is 1.45 for a total of 7.65. 7.65. Now, these are programs that America likes, so it's important. But on top of that,
okay, you've got 7.65. You're talking about the percentage that people pay of their salary to go for that.
7.65% of your pay goes to FICA, and it is matched by your employer. So it's a little over 15% between you and your employer that goes to FICA, Social Security, and Medicare. And another thing about this is that, most of us aren't affected by this. I was never affected by this. But if you make over $117,000 a year, they only take FICA tax out on the first $117,000. So if you've got a very lucrative job where you earn $200,000 a year, you pay FICA up to $117,000. After that, they don't take anything out. I don't know why. I mean, everybody has the benefit of Social Security and Medicare when they get to be my age, but not everybody pays into it. Talk about regressive taxes. That's crazy. And then on top of that, on top of FICA, you've got income withholding. Now, most people are in the 15% bracket for withholding. The 15% is incomes from $9,076 up to $36,900 for single filers. For married, it's $18,151 to $73,800 and so on. So 15%. So on top of the 7.65 that's taken out for FICA, you've got another 15% that's taken out for your income tax. That's to make sure that you don't go spend your money foolishly on buying groceries for your family before you give your just due to Uncle Sam, all right? Our government is so important now. We talked about this in the last program, that the withholding law that was passed in 1943 and implemented in 1945 essentially says you have to feed the government before you feed your family.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about this, and he looked at me and says, well, if you get your FAIRtax, I don't get my tax refund anymore. And I said, yeah, but you've got a choice. Would you like to get a couple $100 back, once a year? Or would you rather have the full gross amount of your paycheck every week? And his eyes lit up and says, I'll take the bigger paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
And that is, so far, the FAIRtax is the only tax reform proposal on the table that completely eliminates the IRS, completely eliminates withholding, and you will get, I don't know how much of a percentage people lose out of their paychecks to federal withholding and those payroll taxes, but you will get a substantial raise in your paycheck, more money in your pocket with the FAIRtax than with any other plan out there.
So if you get a raise of 7.65 because they're not taking FICA out, and you get a raise of 15% because they're not taking withholding, you go ahead and figure out what kind of a difference that makes in your paycheck, all right? Because that is what happened. Now, I remember when I was kind of brand new to the FAIRtax, and I mentioned about the FICA tax going away, one lady got upset with me because she assumed that we were going to do away with Social Security and Medicare. And I've heard people accuse us that nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, under the FAIRtax, because the FAIRtax will fund Social Security and Medicare. In fact, in the bill, H.R. 25, which is only 133 pages long, you can find the section where it says there's a formula that says this amount of the FAIRtax proceeds must go to Social Security and Medicare. That means that every time somebody makes a purchase in this country, they are supporting Social Security and Medicare. Every time. Right now, it's supported by people who get paychecks up to $117,000. People who are very wealthy people who make investments, now they're not paying Social Security. Okay? So only paychecks, people that get paychecks are supporting Social Security. Under the FAIRtax, everybody in this country who makes a purchase, whether they're here legally or not, Everybody supports Social Security and Medicare.
So you've got a much broader and a much more stable platform for funding these two programs than you've currently got under the income tax.
You're probably asking yourself, why haven't they passed this yet? And I get that all the time. After we do presentations and we introduce this to people for the first time, that's one of the most common questions. Why haven't they passed this yet? And that answer would require several programs all to itself. So we're going to leave that until later.
Yeah. Now, the second point we came up with, and you touched on this earlier, withholding, again, by its very nature. The government is saying directly to you, I am your highest priority. You will pay me before you spend a dime on your family. But when you're talking about the fair tax, okay, Jeff, here we go. If you believe feeding your family is a higher priority than feeding the government, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
That's right. Now, I've been reading some books. My wife gave me a book on James Madison by Liz Cheney. Very good book. And right now I'm finishing up the book on John Adams. And that's also, it's amazing. These folks, these founding fathers, if they saw what we had right now, they'd be wrapping their canes over our heads. Why did you let this happen? We purposely did not want an income tax. And now not only do you have an income tax, you've got withholding where you're paying the government before you're providing for your family. This is just nuts. This is not what we fought a revolution for. Okay? So let's not have the founding fathers come back and haunt us, all right? Let's get rid of the income tax and go back to the way it was supposed to be.
So the fair tax puts more money in your pocket every week or every 2 weeks, however often you get your paycheck. It rearranges the priority, so feeding your family is a higher priority than feeding the government. And again, if you'd like to eliminate the IRS from the face of the earth forever, you might be a FAIRtax fan, because the fair tax, again, is the only tax reform program that does that.
That's right. The IRS is there to collect taxes on your income. When the fair tax passes, income taxes will not be legal. They will have no authority to collect income. In fact, a good portion of the text of the fair tax, H.R. 25, is stating chapter and verse what parts of the law are rescinded. All right. So when the fair tax passes, those parts of the law, the income tax, are rescinded. The authority is gone from the IRS. The IRS will stick around for about 3 more years just to finish up what they currently have. Hopefully they'll do it a little less, obtrusively than they have recently, with all the news that they've been making, all the negative news. But it'll be gone. The income tax will be gone. The 16th Amendment must be repealed. Now, why do we have to repeal the 16th Amendment? Come on. Do you really want Congress to have an income tax and a sales tax? Do you think Congress can control themselves? I don't think so.
Don't bet on it.
No. So the IRS will go away because it will have no authority to collect income tax on us anymore.
Yeah, that will be collected by the states. And if I'm not mistaken, 45 of the 50 states already collect a state sales tax.
That's correct.
And so the mechanism for collecting this is already in place.
Yep. All they have to do is add a few lines of code to their computer systems, all right? And the states will be given a small stipend, like 1/4% of whatever they collect to send to the U.S. Treasury. They will be able to keep that for their trouble. And each merchant, each business will be able to be allowed to keep 1/4% of what they collect for their troubles, okay? So it's a win-win for everybody.
That it is. And so, again, the fair tax is the only tax reform proposal that makes the IRS go away completely.
Yep, gone.
There is no reason for that thing to be hanging around our lives anymore if enough of us will band together and simply demand that the Congress pass the fair tax.
I am hoping that when my grandchildren come of age to be, worried about taxes and stuff, that they're going to say, I've heard about this IRS, but I really don't know what it was. That would be very gratifying to me. If my grandchildren never knew what we had to go through to get rid of this, that would be fine with me.
All right. Now, again, if you're trying to decide if you like the fair tax or not, consider this. If you'd like to keep the government's fat nose out of your personal financial business, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
All right. I remember when I was gainfully employed before I was retired, I was in education, and at one point I was taking extra classes and so forth to get an advanced degree. And where I lived out in the boonies, believe it or not, there are parts of New York State that are pretty wild and woolly. I know most of you probably don't believe that unless you live in the Watertown area. But I lived out in the wilderness pretty much. And to get to a college was quite a hike. And so I had expenses on taking these courses. I had traveling expenses, I had college tuition, things like that. And that was all deductible when you fill out your crazy income tax form, all right? But it's not that simple. It's never that simple, is it? Yeah, you can put down, your expenses, your tuition and stuff like that. But when it comes to putting down your mileage, okay, it's not just a matter of putting down your mileage. They want to know, when did you buy this car? What kind of a car is it? What's the year and make? How many other miles do you put on besides your employee business expense miles? They ask all kinds of questions. What business is it of theirs? It's my car. I put this many miles going to this, going to these classes and so forth. Who cares? Why does the government have to know that? And that's just one small example. I'm sure every one of you can come up with all kinds of horrible examples of why the government needs to know all kinds of information that's not directly related to your income. All right? There's just no need for it. All that goes away with the fair tax.
Yes, the government under the income tax insists on knowing and has the right by law to know more about your personal finances than you're comfortable telling your own kids.
Absolutely. It's just crazy. And I'm sure we have so many more examples, all right? But that's the best one I can think of. And I'm glad I don't have to divulge that.
Of course, now under the current system, the government decides when they take your money, which is every pay period or every time you get a retirement check or anytime you get any income. That's when the government steps in under the current system and just, extracts his pound of flesh before you even see it.
Yeah, and Congress has given them that authority to do that.
Right. But if you, rather than the government, if you would like to be in control yourself of when you pay your taxes and how much tax you pay, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
Okay. Currently, as Bob said, the income tax, you take it when the government wants to. Under the fair tax, since it is a consumption tax, you pay your tax when you go to the store or you pay a bill. You get a bill in the mail, you pay it, the fair tax will be included. And yes, the fair tax will be levied on everything. Everybody will pay the fair tax, all right, on everything that we purchase. Now, let's say you're a struggling family, you got mom and dad and two kids, and you're earning just enough money to get by. You're not taking long vacations in Hawaii and so forth. All right. You have the choice of when you buy groceries, do you buy extra stuff? Okay. You make that choice. When you buy the clothes for the kids, you decide what stores you go to and how much you want to spend, how much you can spend. If you have more means, you can spend, you can buy more expensive clothes if you want to. That is your choice, and so forth. Another good feature about the fair tax is that used items like a used car or a pre-owned house, they're not subject to the fair tax because somebody already paid it once. No double taxation. So under the fair tax, you control how much you pay by your spending habits. It is your choice. It is your decision, not somebody else's. Nobody can tell you where to go to shop. Nobody can tell you how much you're going to pay. It's automatically included in everything you buy. Okay? So you are in command. You are in control. And that's why we say that under the fair tax, you decide how much tax you pay. Now, yeah, there's certain things you have to buy. You have to feed your family. You have to buy clothes. You have to provide shelter and so forth. Yeah, but how much and to what degree, that's up to you. So it's totally your decision. You are in control, not some government agency.
Okay, we got time for one more point to go through on this program, and that would be, if you would like to save and invest totally free of federal taxation, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
Okay, let's say you're that struggling family of four is earning just enough to get by. Well, let's say that the boss is very happy with one or both of the workers, and they get a raise. Okay, great, that's wonderful. Now they do have some discretionary money. they might want to, let's say they're renting an apartment and they really want to buy a house. So they start saving for a down payment in the house. They've got their employment up where they can afford a mortgage payment, but they need that down payment. They start an account, they start saving it. That account, the interest on that account is not subject to the income tax because there is no income tax. There's no IRS, all right? There's only the fair tax. Under the fair tax, you only spend money when you only pay taxes when you spend money, all right? No income tax. So you will be able to save and invest totally free of federal taxation. They don't have to know how much you're saving and investing and how much interest you're getting. It's nobody's business but yours. So your savings will grow faster because none of it is going to Uncle Sam. You're paying the fair tax, you're doing your fair share, no income is taxed anymore.
And under the fair tax as well, the estate and inheritance taxes go away as well. I mean, that's something that happens. We've had time and time again, we've seen cases where somebody passes on and the family business or the family home or whatever is passed down to the heirs, and they are forced to sell it because they can't pay the taxes on it, and that goes away with a fair tax.
That's especially bad with family farms too. There's a lot of people that cannot keep the family farm that was in their possession for maybe several generations, but in order to pay the taxes on it, they have to sell it. That's a real tragedy, and it's a real impact of our current tax system. We have to stop that. We have to stop disrupting people's lives with this crazy tax system. All right? We need to go to the fair tax.
You do, because now, again, think about it, folks. You just had it in your head all these years that income is taxed when you earn it. With the fair tax, you are taxed when you spend it. And if you don't spend it on retail purchases,
that's right,
then you're not taxed. You can save it, you can invest it, you can give it to your kids, you can do whatever you want with it. It is not taxed until you decide that it's time to spend it.
Exactly. Think of how much control you'll have over your own finances and what you choose to do with it, while you're in your working years, while you're in your retirement years, and after you pass on, with what happens to your life savings and so forth, your home, all that. It's totally your decision. It's between you and your children. All right, the government doesn't get involved in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, so let's recap what we've done on this show so far. If you'd like more money in your pocket by eliminating federal withholding and payroll taxes from your paycheck or your retirement distributions, you might be a FAIRtax fan. If you believe that feeding your family before feeding the government, you might be a FAIRtax fan. If you'd like to exterminate the IRS, eliminate them from the face of the earth forever, you might be a FAIRtax fan. If you'd like to keep the government's nose out of your personal financial business, you might be a FAIRtax fan. If you'd like to be in control of how much tax you pay and when you pay it, you might be a FAIRtax fan. And if you'd like to save and invest totally free of federal taxation, you might be a FAIRtax fan. All right. And there's some more points we're going to get to on the next program. But for now, Ron, we need to tell people how we can make this happen. The fair tax is a great idea. People love it. Politicians, not so much. They've decided that gaming the system for votes and profit is more important than doing what's right for the country sometimes.
Yep.
And when you think about it, the tax code we've got, all 74,000 pages plus, is exactly what Congress wants us to have. And if we're going to be talking tax reform here in this Congress that just started, they will rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic and call it meaningful reform, pat themselves on the back, and go right on with business as usual if we let them get away with it. And the best way not to let them get away with that is to have a very, very strong grassroots organization demanding the fair tax. That organization does exist. It's called AFFT, Americans for Fair Taxation, and it is absolutely critical that if you'd like to see this happen, you must join AFFT so we can show the politicians just how many people out here want this thing.
I think I've mentioned before that recently the Americans for Fair Taxation have changed their leadership structure, and their board of directors is now elected from a variety of states, and I think there's 32 on the board of directors. I've never seen this group so active. It's amazing what they're doing. Every way, shape, and form that they can find and figure out to promote the fair tax they're doing. And one thing they're doing is they recently opened up a lobbying office in Washington. They've been told that in order to have an impact on the people in Washington, the movers and the shakers and so forth, or if you want to call them Congress critters, whatever you want to call them, all right, they have to have a presence in Washington. So they're going to have somebody, maybe our president, whoever, staff that office on a regular basis and go up there and be there to talk to the Congress people and their staffers and the people on the tax committees, the Joint Committee on Taxation and so forth, all the important people. And obviously that's going to take some bucks, okay? So we need your contributions to the Americans for Fair Taxation, and we need your membership. It's critically important that, for just $5, become a member. Go to www.fairtax.org, click the membership button, become a member for as little as $5. If you have several people in your family, please, each one of them, a $5 member, because we need as many members as we possibly can get, all right? We need to tell these people we've got 1 million, 2 million, whatever, members of the Americans for Fair Taxation, and here's what we want you to do.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the $5 membership is the floor there. And $5 a year. That's a year, folks. We need your numbers more so. We do need some money. We do need the contributions. We don't want to gloss over that entirely. But if we have our choice between $5, 10 members paying $5 each, or one guy paying $50, we'll take the 10 paying $5 just so we can show the politicians that there are this many people. It's the numbers that count, because every politician, again, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of ideology, where they may land, their two highest priorities are getting elected and getting reelected. Yep. And they make decisions based on that a lot more so than what's on good for the country.
Yep. That's right. So we can't encourage you any more strongly to go to the website, the national website, fairtax.org. And whatever state you're in, I'm pretty sure there's a fair tax organization there. Florida, Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, New York, wherever. I believe there's a fair tax organization in every single state. So you can also search out and maybe help out locally, all right? You can learn more about the fair tax by reading the books and so forth. You can volunteer your time. You can contact some of the local leaders and say, I'd like to help. I was at a meeting yesterday where I had somebody said, I really like this fair tax and I want to get involved. Please put me on your volunteer list. So we've got another volunteer in our little local area where Bob and I live.
Okay. But note that becoming a member does not obligate you to do anything. If you've got a full plate already and all you can do is just say, here's $5 to join, count me amongst those who like them, that's fine. You can do that. If you want to get more involved, it's completely up to you how much you want your membership. I don't know of any other organization that basically lets you decide how much your membership dues are going to be.
Yeah, that's right.
AFFT does that. But again, you're not committed to anything. We certainly would welcome as many volunteers as we can get. But that's what we need, your numbers on the roll, need your names on the roll more than anything else. And that's just about going to wrap it up. For this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio, thank you for listening. Again, our email address, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Questions about the fair tax. Hopefully we can get enough of these things that we can create a whole show based on just answering questions about the fair tax. Of course, hopefully as we go along, a lot of questions will be answered. But if you've got one, and if you've got a really sticky one, we can probably find an expert somewhere that can answer every question that will come in on the fair tax. So we'd like you to do that. The questions and comments about the show. Again, if you'd like a audio recording, no printed transcripts, but we do have audio recordings. You can send that request as well to thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. We're working on getting some podcasts. Hopefully that will be in place soon, if not already. But we're trying to get the word out, and if you can help us with that, we sure would appreciate that. Absolutely. So as we say, until next time, the fair tax. Once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Amen.
Taxes coming across the